So this weekend, multiple institutions around college football are hosting massive recruiting weekends filled with some of the nation's top prospects. And because of that, we've got to turn our attention to these events. And we're going to start with the Oklahoma Sooners, who are playing host to some prospects that are sure to excite the Oklahoma Sooners fan base. And because of that, we've got to break it all down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners can exit this weekend in the lead for some of these top prospects? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below as those interactions are massive. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And this is going to be an interesting conversation to have because as excited as I am to talk about the players who are set to be in attendance, I feel like it's only right we start talking about a player who's not set to be in attendance, where if you look on social media, a lot of Oklahoma Sooner fans have been talking about it, and that's David Stone, an individual that if you polled the Sooner football fan nation, that might be the number one guy they want in this recruiting class, and deservedly so. Five-star defensive line prospect, turn on the film, unbelievably gifted. But David Stone's going to be visiting A&M this weekend, and many Oklahoma fans were wondering what this means for the recruitment of David Stone. And quite honestly, it means next to nothing. It is only March. There is nothing but time and opportunity in front of all of these head coaches to really start recruiting heavily. And if I'm not mistaken, David Stone has been to Oklahoma's campus so many times. While you would have loved to get him in for a visit, there is no doubt about that. It's not something that's a hindrance to your ability to be able to recruit him because you didn't get him in for a visit this weekend. He's there a lot. He has family that goes to the university. I don't think this is a situation you really need to worry about. I think it only makes sense that if he's been to Oklahoma several times, he would take this opportunity to go see a new institution or somewhere he hasn't had the opportunity to visit as much. We have to remember, these kids are getting the opportunity to go see new environments, to go make friends, so this makes complete sense to me, and if I'm an Oklahoma fan, I wouldn't feel worried in the slightest about David Stone taking that visit to Texas A&M. Let's be completely honest here, Texas A&M has recruited that defensive line as well or better than any institution in the nation, specifically talking about defensive line recruiting, over the past few classes. And in a way, that works to A&M's favor, but in the same kind of way, that works in Oklahoma's favor, because there's a much more linear path to playing time at the Oklahoma Sooners than there is at Texas A&M in theory. So I just wanted to start with David Stone, get that out of the way, because I've seen a lot of people talking about it. And personally, while I think you would have loved to have had him there, it is in no way, shape, or form a hindrance to your ability to recruit him long term. He's been there so many times. But now let's turn our attention to some of the guys who are set to be in attendance. And since we started talking about a five-star defensive lineman, what better way for us to segue into talking about five-star defensive linemen? And first and foremost, we need to talk about Edric Houston, the five-star defensive lineman, five-star per 24/7 Sports composite. This is an area where the Oklahoma Sooners are going to be paying a lot of attention in this class for 2024, is this defensive front. They were really able to get some big wins along the defensive front last cycle, and they're looking to double down, especially on that interior this cycle. That's why you see guys such as Houston. That's why you see guys such as David Stone, and the Oklahoma Sooners are pursuing them so vehemently. It only makes sense. Look, football is won and lost in the trenches. I talk about this all the time. It's one of the reasons why I was not surprised to see the Texas Longhorns struggle for as long as they did. They completely forgot about recruiting the offensive line for years, and it found themselves in a precarious position, something this coaching staff for Texas is really trying to work in reverse, trying to fix. Well, Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners are now cognizant to how they have to fix via recruiting. And that's fixing the trenches, much like the Texas Longhorns, except for Oklahoma, it's coming on the defensive side, the defensive trenches. And look, one thing we have to talk about, Brent Venables, Oklahoma, Todd Bates, these guys can recruit their tails off. There's a reason why they're already in such good positions for so many of the top prospects in the class of 2024. Super interested to see how this plays out. But five-star defensive linemen coming in. David Stone might not be there, but there isn't a shortage of five-star defensive linemen. Because we talked about Houston, but what about another five-star defensive lineman? A top 5 defensive lineman in the class of 2024, a class absolutely littered with top-tier defensive linemen. And of course, we're talking about Williams Nwaneri. Nwaneri is a gifted prospect with some versatility. When you look at him, he stands 6'5", 245 pounds. Whether they're going to bulk him up, play him more interior or exterior remains to be seen, but if you are Brent Venables, if you are the Oklahoma Sooners, that versatility is key. We talk about this ad nauseum on the live streams. The Brent Venables defense is built on versatility. He wants players that can fill multiple roles. That way he's able to maximize the entirety of his defense. I think Nwaneri fits that mold perfectly. If Oklahoma is able to exit this weekend in the lead for any prospects, if they can lay the foundation for these defensive linemen, they are going to be over the moon. Because that's, like I said, an area where they're going to be turning a lot of attention. But luckily for the Oklahoma Sooners, there are several prospects you need to be excited about outside these very, very gifted defensive linemen. There was some chatter that the Oklahoma Sooners could be expecting 4-star quarterback Michael Hawkins to be in attendance, and if that was to be true, that'd be a big-time win for the Sooners, because they seem to be battling TCU for the very talented quarterback out the state of Texas. And one of the things that's so key with Michael Hawkins, his former teammate is a top-tier prospect as well. A top tight end to every institution in the nation wants to get. So getting Hawkins, in theory, gives you an end with that tight end, something we've got to pay attention to. But if we're also looking at the state of Texas, there are several other prospects that Oklahoma will have in attendance that are top-tier players out the state of Texas. One such individual who I've been watching closely is Aaron Hampton, the wide receiver, a very talented individual who personally I think is set to rise up this recruiting board, who multiple institutions in the nation are really recruiting hard. Hampton is a gifted prospect, and Oklahoma is very lucky they get him into this junior day, because there are several other institutions that would have loved to have gotten him in. Flip on the tape, you're going to see a lot you love about his game. Kind of winding down, talking about some of these last few prospects, and we're not going to go through the entire list. The entire list is long. It's subject to change. We're just going to go through some highlights, and we'll further talk about this list tonight on the live stream, 5:30 Central Standard Time. Can't wait to see you there. But how about some more defensive players? How about a 4-star defensive back out the state of Texas, Jaden Hardy, a very gifted prospect, and this is painting the picture. Whenever you really look at this Oklahoma Junior Day, you're really getting the idea that Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners are totally changing the way the Sooners recruit the defensive side of the ball. A side of the ball that for a while was just completely forgotten when it came to Oklahoma recruiting. By and large, they would be able to get talent. One thing we know about Oklahoma, they're able to get talent. But under Lincoln Riley, the vast majority of that talent was placed on the offensive side of the ball. And it was telling. Whenever you'd watch the games, it was obvious where they were pooling their resources. But with Brent Venables, you're seeing a different picture. You're seeing a much more complete and balanced picture. And I have always said this, and I remain steadfast in this thought. You can have a great offense, but you cannot be one-sided and win a national championship. Not anymore. Not anymore. And maybe never. Maybe never. But I certainly know right now you cannot be a one-sided football team and win a national championship, which is why so many people, including myself, so many others, PG, Jay, Indy, Sooner, Trav, they're all so impressed with how Brent Venables is recruiting. Because one thing I always talk about, recruiting is like building a house. You got to start with the foundations. There's no better way to do that than with a strong foundation, something Brent Venables is doing very well. Look, if you can get a top 10 recruiting class while having a losing record, that's probably a pretty good indication that recruits are excited about your future. And if recruits are excited about your future, well, maybe everybody else should perk up and pay attention as well. But I can't wait to hear from all of you. This is a very loaded event. Like I said, we only went through a few names, a very handful of names during the course of this video, because if not, this would be a 35-minute video, and I think none of you want to do that. Hop into the live stream this evening at 5:30. We're going to be talking about a ton of topics, but we'll absolutely be diving more into the Oklahoma Sooners Junior Day, something that's going to be exciting for everyone involved. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.